Did you know that there is a deeper spiritual meaning to the term Brahmacharya, the fourth yama in the 8 limbs of yoga? Hi, my name is Michelle Fondin. I'm the author of the brand new book, The 8 Limbs of Yoga for Modern Times, a practical guide to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I'm also the author of Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, exploring your 7 energy centers with mindfulness, yoga, and Ayurveda. This will become pertinent toward the second half of the video. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I teach meditation on demand online. You can get your personalized mantra with me. And if you'd like to find out more, join my info session on June 5th. You need to register though. The link is below to register to find out more about my course, Immersion into Meditation. Welcome to part 2 of the videos on Brahmacharya. This is the 8 limbs of yoga study. Now listen, you don't need to be a yogi to benefit from the 8 limbs of yoga study, especially with the first 2 parts, the yamas and the niyamas, because the yamas are ethical and moral standards for living, and the niyamas are personal observances for a better, healthier, and more holistic life. We are studying, again, in this second video, Brahmacharya, which is the 4th yama, which is the first limb of yoga. I know, it's getting confusing, isn't it? If you have not yet viewed the first video on Brahmacharya, I'm gonna put that link right here and you can check that out after this video. I am so excited about this second video on Brahmacharya. I divided it into 2 because of the deeper spiritual meaning of the word Brahmacharya that I did not even know until I was researching for this book. What I learned when I was in yoga teacher training about Brahmacharya, that it meant sexual restraint. It literally means to not have sex, celibacy, or it means to hold back, to withhold, to withdraw. For the men yogis, it was intended for semen retention to reach higher states of enlightenment. Let's talk about modern times, and we're going to talk about this beautiful spiritual meaning of Brahmacharya, which means to flow with Brahma. Brahma meaning God, universal source, oneness. And when I read that Brahmacharya means to flow with God, it made so much more sense to me. Because let's think about Brahmacharya, sexual withholding or sexual restraint, meaning to withhold the pleasure principle of sex to attain something bigger and better. Now, I would say, and I said this in my last video, that it is not about suppression or repression of the sexual impulse or the sexual act. But we must broaden our perspective of what Brahmacharya means and what the sexual and creative impulse means. To flow with Brahma, to flow with God, is indicating that this is a creative life force. Now, we are creators. We are co-creators with God. A lot of people study manifestation, including myself. A lot of people want to know how to be a better manifester. And the way you become a better manifester is to harness the power of creation. And if you are flowing with God, if you are flowing with Brahma, flowing with God, you automatically become a better creator. You become a better manifester of your desires. I'm going to read to you a quick quote from my book that comes from the Upanishads, and it's the commentary by Eknath Easwaran, who wrote the translation that I read of the Upanishads. He wrote, "Sexual desire, like everything else in the Upanishads, is only partly physical. Essentially, it is a spiritual force, pure high-octane energy And Brahmacharya means it's transformation. Now, if we're talking about the creative force, pure high-octane energy transforming, what does that tell me? Manifestation. That's what it tells me, manifestation. The key to manifestation, according to the Upanishads, the ancient Vedic text from whence came the 8 limbs of yoga and the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, is flowing with Brahma, flowing with God. Oh my God, let's talk about this because this is the key, you guys. So many people have written about the power of manifesting, including some of my favorites, Dr. Deepak Chopra in The Spontaneous Fulfillment of Desire, Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, who wrote Manifest Your Destiny, among many other books, but Manifest Your Destiny and The Power of Intention. And of course, my latest and greatest favorite is Abraham Hicks through Esther Hicks, which they call the art of allowing through the book, Ask and It Is Given. So many people have written about and spoken about the power of manifesting, and they all pretty much say the same thing. You need to allow yourself to go with the flow of your creative force as you co-create with God. This is so powerful as a statement. In practice, it's a lot more challenging than it sounds. But I love the translation to flow with God, to flow with Brahma, because most of us are fighting an uphill battle most of our lives. We're trying to climb uphill, flow upstream, fight to get to the top. We believe that through our actions, through our striving to arrive, through overworking, through over-driving, through over-talking, that we will attain our goals, we'll attain what we want, we will manifest what we desire. Now, action is necessary, but when you think about flowing with God, it means you are working with God. You are working with Brahma. You're using your creative force to work with God instead of against God. Now, when we talk about Brahmacharya, we're not just talking about the sexual part of creation. That is but one part. That is the physical part that we use essentially for pleasure, for procreation, and as part of being human, which I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're human. I don't know, maybe your pets are listening to me and they also have the sexual impulse. But the beauty of what differentiates humans from other animals is that we have a lot more innovation at our fingertips than other animals do. Now, certainly animals do create. Birds create nests. Beavers create dams. They create their homes. Many different species also create their homes, except that humans have a variety of choices when it comes to the power of creation. And yet, we often misuse this power of creation to create things that are destructive and not constructive, for example, but also to feel like we have to have at it by ourselves, that we are not flowing with Brahma, that we are not flowing with God, but that we have to do it all on our own. And a lot of times we feel very much alone in this process. We feel lonely. And that's why many people seek out sexual pleasure as a means to get over that loneliness. And so let's think about this from a second chakra perspective. And that's why I held up my book, Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, Exploring Your 7 Energy Centers. In the second chakra, I talk about the creative life force because the second chakra is your sexual and creativity center. And when we connect that to Brahmacharya, we can really understand from this chakra of creativity, which includes your sex organs, but it also includes that impulse for life. In the woman, there is the uterus, which is literally the womb of creation. But everyone can have a womb of creation within them when you talk about creating something. Whether you're baking a cake, building a house, putting together a bicycle for your child, or any other creative endeavor that you might embark upon. Well, here's where the creative impulse becomes problematic, is when you are not flowing with Brahma, flowing with God, like the definition of Brahmacharya. You're fighting against the flow. And when you fight against the flow to try to create something and it's not working, whether you're building a relationship or a business, for example, then you feel isolated and alone, and then that causes that creative force to go awry, in which case you start to reach for things that are not in your best and highest good. The second chakra can also indicate things like sexual addictions, problems with not being able to perform sexually, or other types of addictions like addictions to alcohol and drugs, or even food. So when we see that creative impulse going in the wrong direction, we see it being problematic because we're not using it for the greater good. We're not using it for our highest good, but rather we're using it to take the bull by the horns and saying, I'm the sole creator. God, you are for nothing. I'm not going to flow with you. I'm going to try to do this all on my own. And you feel lonely and isolated and unable to finish that creation because you're not flowing with the creative impulse, so that you go into the dark side of creativity. And the dark side of creativity and that creative impulse is when you feel isolated and alone and you try to numb it out through destructive means. Everything has two sides on this earth plane. And you think about that dualistic nature that we possess. And so when we're flowing with Brahma in the biggest, best creative sense and going downstream, as Abraham Hicks would say, or if you're going down the hill rather than constantly climbing up the hill, and you're just chilling out and going with the flow and getting those creative impulses when they're ready to come to you, not forcing it to happen, but getting those creative impulses and then going for it when you get those creative impulses to create something beautiful, to create that relationship, that business, build that bike. We all know the frustration of trying to build something out of a box and it not working out. But when you get those creative impulses, then that is flowing with Brahma to move forward, to go forward. And sometimes it's okay to just do nothing while you're waiting for that next hit of creativity, that next hit of creative impulse. And don't you know, when you're using your creative impulse properly, and you take a break, you take a shower, you take a nap, you take a hike, you go for a swim, whatever it happens to be, then that's when you get all the creative ideas and you're like, where's the pen and paper when I need it? I need to write all this stuff down. And it's because you've let go. You've let go and you've let God and you've gone with the creative flow, the creative impulse, that you are the creative being that you were designed to be. And so when you think about Brahmacharya as being something restrictive or constrictive, I would rather you look at Brahmacharya as flowing with God, creative force. Like I am flowing with Brahma, flowing with God with my creative force, my creative impulse. Now that goes for using your sexuality as well. If you're flowing with God as this beautiful creative impulse, then you'll know when it's right to use the physical aspects of your creativity and sexual pleasure, if you will, your sexual impulses. It's when we are out of alignment and not flowing with Brahma where we get into some sticky situations where we might be with the wrong person. We might be with an abusive person. We might be with a person who's not serving our highest and best good. Or we might just get into a relationship that is not right for us. But when you're flowing with God, when you're flowing with Brahma, when you're a co-creator with the universal force, and you know for certain that you are not alone in this, that you have all the forces and all the power of the universe with you as you create, then you've got it. You understand it. You get it. You get the power of manifestation. You get the art of creating. You understand it from a visceral standpoint rather than, again, fighting against it. And so when the Upanishads wrote about Brahmacharya, it wasn't to be restrictive. It was to go with the flow of Brahma, to go with the flow of God. So I hope you get that. And I hope you fully grasp it and understand that if you are a manifester, which you are, but if you're a mindful manifester, that is the key right there, flowing with Brahma. That is the key that all of the authors who write about manifestation, that is what they are talking about. And so when we can harness that energy, right? So it's not about constriction, it's about harnessing and focusing that energy, bringing it in, not having it all out there, right? Sometimes we get upset when we see people dressing provocatively, mostly women, right? It's mostly women that we see dressing provocatively. We're like, what are they doing? And there is some truth to that, right? There is some truth to not putting it all out there, but having some mystery, being a little coy, right? But when you bring in that sexual energy, when you bring in that creative force energy, it allows you to channel it better, right? It just allows you to channel it better into something that you actually want versus something that you may or may not want, but really are not too mindful to have proper discernment as to whether or not you want that thing. So I hope this was helpful in helping you understand Brahmacharya on a very different level. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on the bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. Thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thanks for sharing this video with others who are studying yoga, yoga philosophy, are in a yoga teacher training program, or maybe you're leading a yoga teacher training program. Share this with your students. Thanks for your support of my YouTube channel. You can download a cheat sheet of the 8 limbs of yoga for your yoga students, for yourself as a teacher. The link is below. Of course, you can buy one of my 12 published books. All is appreciated. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.